Well, Victoria is suffering from a GP crisis more than most states and territories, as Victorians would know only too well. Wait times for appointments are lengthy, emergency departments are clogged, and I think those descriptions underplay how frustrated and scared many Victorians are if and when they need to have an illness treated in any of those places. Yet health experts say these problems are being bypassed by both sides in the election campaign, because all the election promises and pouring money into health seems to focus on shiny new hospitals rather than addressing a serious staff shortage. Joining me now to discuss this and the rest of today's top stories is former Labor MP Michael Danby and media and tech leader Kosha Garda. Thank you to you both. Michael, I'll start with you. You know more than most
Chris.
How much health is a major election battleground in Victoria. Tens of billions are being promised, yet none of it is what the healthcare industry is actually asking for. They want an overhaul, not new structures where the same problems will only emerge. I think it makes great sense.
Edifice complexes. That's what they used to talk about in that legendary program of Yes Minister about building hospitals. You don't just want buildings. Now, if they're justified and you need to build them, okay, but you're absolutely dead right. Most Victorians know that there's a shortage of person power in all of our health facilities. It's not just doctors and nurses, it's healthcare workers who are very underpaid, and people are also exhausted, Chris, from the COVID experience,
Sure.
and a lot of people are staying at home. Doctors, nurses and healthcare workers, there's an absolute shortage of them. I think both sides of politics should be putting a more priority on that.
Yeah, I think it makes a great deal of sense, and it applies to both sides who are promising the world, don't give us another infrastructure project, don't have to find a reason to cut a ribbon. How about you just get the system right first? Kosha, ever since COVID, it seems that every Victorian has a bad hospital or GP experience. Is any of that swaying votes previous or prior to this election, do you think?
Hi, Chris. I think there's certainly an anger that's bubbling up in certain parts of the electorate around, despite increased spending and increased taxes in this area, how the public health system is being administered in certain corners. But here's, I think, the issue that spending on healthcare and its close cousin education, by the way, there's a lot of analogs here, always only goes in one way. And spending in these areas has outpaced population growth, so it's not really justified by that. And the mix also gets really, really worse and deteriorates, where spending on the administrative functions within healthcare, within education bloat and are going up, whereas spending on the actual doctors, nurses, people that do the work that's meaningful to the constituent or to the consumer is not keeping up pace with that. And I think, that's a problem. The reason why is because these are feel-good categories. They're the feel-good categories of political promise. It's very easy to sell them in moralistic terms, that we need more healthcare, we need more education, and it's very difficult even for politicians on the other side of the aisle who are supposed to be fiscally responsible to combat that once it's framed in moralistic terms. That's the problem. I think there's an opportunity here, given that and given what you're asking about the way the electorate is seeing this and receiving this. There's an opportunity for more high contrast positions that reins in spending in these areas, reins it in as it relates to the administrative aspect of healthcare, redirects it more to doctors and nurses and where we need it, and it just shows more fiscal responsibility while improving health outcomes.
Oh, what a thorough analysis. You should be the Health Minister of Victoria, Kosha, staying in the state, and Dan Andrews was, I guess, really trying to hog the camera today, and I know why. He's close to an election, but he holds this emergency weather presser today, which is 2 days out before the emergency. It's not Wednesday. Michael, he was back to his COVID best. He felt very comfortable. He almost had the old north-facing shirt on or jacket on.
Goodness me. Well, next they'll be sending Peter Credlin down there to ask him some questions.
Yes.
Look, I think he's got a bit of a DeSantis. He's seen how successful the governor of Florida was during that real emergency, and he wants to put himself back in the limelight as the natural disaster solver.
Yeah.
Look, I hope Victorians look after themselves if there is a big flood on Thursday or Friday, but I'd be surprised if this press conference was as melodramatic as it was as necessary as he's.
He loves to be crisis manager. You're dead right. Talking about image, though, Kosher, it does work for Chairman Dan because he laps up being the emergency master and he sounds like he's got it under control most of the time. It doesn't matter what he says, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
You know, Rahm Emanuel, President Obama's former chief of staff, famously said, never let a crisis go to waste. And I think, that's what you see here, that any event, including one handed down by Mother Nature herself, is always going to create an opportunity for political expediency. And it usually does corral support around the incumbent, whoever the incumbent is. As Michael mentioned, Ron DeSantis, right now, in the wake of a very contentious election in the U.S., coming into that helped him. The other side is going to always try and see if there's an opportunity to hurt the incumbent in that. Hurricane Katrina and the Bush years is something that comes to mind. But generally speaking, it always helps the person in power. Maybe he's using that and trying to take the reins because it's something that can shore up support for him, make him look sort of statesman-like or as a good leader in the run-up to the election over here, and that's what he's doing. It can simultaneously also be true that it's a legitimate and imminent crisis, and as Michael said, I hope that he's actually leading and putting the people in Victoria that need support, in his sight for that. But I think at the same time, it's also definitely an opportunity for political expediency, and that's what you're seeing.
Michael Danby, tomorrow marks 20 years since the deadly Bali bombings, which killed 88 Australians among 202 casualties. Australian police revealed today that the group responsible are still active and are quietly recruiting. They've managed to fundraise a small fortune by pretending to be a charity, which is just evil stuff. Given the fact, Michael, that we've got Australians returning to Bali in very large numbers now, this has got to be a huge concern, doesn't it?
It does. It reminds me of the famous saying, THGA, they haven't gone away. They haven't gone away. This Islamist sect in Indonesia that is against most of the Indonesian people's interests, is against certainly the people of Bali. I just hope, as John Howard was saying earlier on this network, that the Indonesian and Australian police are cooperating thoroughly. They became friends during this thing and they did a magnificent job in smashing Jemaah Islamiyah at the time. Let's hope they're still on the job. Let's hope the people of Bali and Indonesia are really working to see that these guys are not successful.
Yeah, fingers crossed that is the case. Michael Danby, Kosher Gata, thank you so much for your time tonight. Enjoy the rest of your week.
We will. Thanks.
Thank you.
Chris.
If it doesn't rain too hard.
That's right. Keep under shelter.